The Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Blaine Gabbert must face the problems and some responsibility for subpar performance in the 2012 season. Along with General Manager Gene Smith and Coach Mike Mularkey, the Jaguars need a significant overhaul to become an NFL franchise worthy of our viewership. The spectacle of a new flamboyant owner in Shad Khan, a minor push to upgrade an outdated stadium, and the holdout of star running back Maurice Jones-Drew for a bigger contract reduced the Jags to a joke before the season began. The passionless and at times embarrassing level of play sealed the team's fate as the annual contender for the last place team in the league. My question is this: why, with all the negativity surrounding this franchise and a current record of 1-9, does the city of Jacksonville demand the team stay in town, possibly for the hope of seeing their favorite teams come to town to beat the Jags?
All in, and initially incredible community support. The Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Blaine Gabbert must face the problems and some responsibility for subpar performance in the 2012 season, along with the general manager Gene Smith and coach Mike Mularkey. The Jaguars need a significant overhaul to become an NFL franchise worthy of our viewership. The spectacle of a new flamboyant owner in Shad Khan, a minor push to upgrade an outdated stadium, and the holdout of star running back Maurice Jones-Drew for a bigger contract reduced the Jags to a joke before the season even began. The passionless and at times embarrassing level of play sealed the team's fate as the annual contender for the last place team in the league. My question is this: why, with all the negativity surrounding this franchise and a current record of 1-9, does the city of Jacksonville demand the team stay in town, possibly for the hope of seeing their favorite teams come to town to beat the Jags?
So you just saw two individuals attempting sport broadcasting from a script that I wrote. Who do you think is more credible, the male sportscaster or the female sportscaster, and why? So that's sort of that is the question as I was looking at women in sport broadcasting. Why are there barriers to women in sport broadcasting? What's the history? What's bringing about these issues? And what can we, as women, looking at going in the industry, do or hope to do to change the limited opportunities at this point? So, the history of women in sport broadcasting, there in my readings, there was talk of Mrs. Harry Johnson, who provided color commentary for her husband's radio show in the late 1930s for her husband's sports broadcasting radio show. So women have been involved in sport media since the late 1930s at various levels and in various ways. As we get into the 1960s and 1970s, there's a combination of former sport athletes, as in Donna De Verona, who was a very good swimmer, an Olympic level swimmer, and in 1965 she debuted as a swimming expert at the age of 17 on TV. So that was probably a novelty, but also she knew what she was talking about, being a swimmer herself. And then we get into the Phyllis George era in the mid-70s, where beauty queens started to be a part of sports broadcasting. Someone that looked good, someone that brought forth a positive visual image to potentially bring in women viewers to sports. Phyllis George is probably the most famous of those, and in the readings, she was a former Miss America and was a very good on-air personality, but not necessarily knowledgeable on sport. And so we move from that mid to late 70s era. And as we move forward, I think it's appropriate to mention that, with Title IX passing in 1972, as we move through the history of sports broadcasters, the current women that we see on TV hopefully, and have been through sports, competitive sports, throughout their lives since, if they were born anywhere near 1972, so they would be in their 40s right now, and probably at the prime of their career, and had played sports through school, at least through high school, if not college. Many female sports broadcasters at this point were former student athletes, and thus would lend to a perceived credibility in their delivery of sport news. As we go from the 70s into the 80s, Gail Sierens is a notable. She's in 1987 she was the first woman to do a play-by-play for NFL, and she was actually offered a full-time position to do that for the NFL and turned it down at that time. That would have meant moving, and she had a young family, and so she stayed in her local station in Tampa in 1987. But I thought that was an interesting point, that being the first person to do the play-by-play, but yet turned down an opportunity to do it full-time. And then we get into, in the mid to late 80s, we get into names that we know more today, because these women are very good at what they do, and they have stayed around. So Linda Cohn, Mary Carrillo, Hannah Storm, and then there's some in the 90s, Doris Burke, Cheryl Miller, Robin Roberts, Paula Zahn. Some of these are very sport specific. Doris Burke is considered an expert in basketball. She does NBA games, she does college basketball. Cheryl Miller obviously was a basketball player and coach. Robin Roberts was a basketball player. So they tend to be experts at their sports. A unique person is Anne Liguori, who is the only female who produces and owns, well, in 1989 for sure, she started her own show, her own sports syndicate show, and she was for a long time the only woman that owned, produced, and hosted her own sports show. And her focus is mainly golf from my research. And then we get back into the really the big money time now, especially in NFL and NBA, and where we get back to, we're almost, going full circle. We're sort of back to the pretty girl on the sideline mode. Erin Andrews is a very famous example of that, where, the looks of someone's looks are a big part of why they're on television. And so now we're going to go into the second sort of column, which is the TV environment. And what I wrote here is shallow expectations, but really what that means is this idea that women are on TV because they're pretty. And in all my research and what I found about women in sport broadcasting is they not only have to be pretty, but they have to really know what they're talking about, or they would have never been given a slight opportunity. So, in my readings, incredibly bright people have to be attractive to get hired. And women must walk a fine line of really knowing their sports, never being caught not knowing, because then it just goes back to, oh, well, you're a woman, of course you don't know that. So, they can't get caught not knowing, so they over-prepare for their broadcast, and they have to look good. All through that all, people will ultimately judge women, and do judge women, on how they look, not the quality of their broadcast. So it's kind of a very difficult situation for women to be in. And then, we get into this idea of even the best female sports journalists, the most press they receive is when they wear an outfit that someone doesn't like, or when they don't look good on TV, which is again very frustrating. So, and then one of the more famous examples of that is Hannah Storm, and there's some pictures here on my poster of her wearing boots and a short skirt. And the, I'm trying to think of this, the guy, Tony, Kornheiser, is the man up there in that top, second column, top picture, and he had some pretty disparaging things to say about Hannah Storm and what she was wearing, and that she's too old to be wearing clothes like that, and basically ripped her outfit apart, which, you know, isn't helping anyone. He was actually suspended from his job. It didn't do anything to help viewers look at, you know, think about what women are saying. And then if you're on the other side of that, you know, and say that the female should be wearing more appropriate things, or that she should be judged on what she's wearing, you know, that's, you know, as if you went through my wiki and watched that very good video about female sport broadcasting, you know, that's the old adage of, you know, judging women for what they're wearing is the same as arguing, you know, well, you know, when women are assaulted, or when there's violence against women, sexual violence against women, that's somehow their fault for dressing provocatively. So, you know, that's the same thing. So Hannah Storm is bad at sports broadcasting because she wore a skirt you didn't like. It's her fault, you know, that she's not pleasing you. That's just it's sort of a victim mentality or a discriminatory mentality. But you know, male broadcasters, you know, possibly might feel threatened. Sport is a male, typically and traditionally male domain, and you know, there are many instances recorded on YouTube that where they demean and criticize female broadcasters who are moving in on their turf. So why women are having difficulty gaining momentum in sport? In sport and military, these are two realms of our society where there are still pretty significant gender boundaries, meaning this is a male domain, or this is not, and this is not where women should be. And so that's what women are generally fighting against, and it's a very much an uphill battle. The NFL has the highest profiles of sport, and this is sort of the pinnacle of where women, once these gender barriers are broken down, where women will be, you know, reporting on a sport that women don't generally play, which many people will say, well, how could they know anything about it? You know, well, guess what? They could know everything about it. And, you know, men would still say, well, they just don't get it. They don't get it. They haven't played the game. Well, you know, there's a lot of men out there that haven't played my sport, volleyball, but they report on it. They do play-by-play. They do color commentary. There are many professional broadcasters that do their job well, regardless of if they've been in that exact experience or not. So I don't think that is valid, but is definitely a social construct that women can't report on male sport. And then we go, I'm running out of time, and then we go over to sideline reporting is another thing where this is where we've put women in sport broadcasting, and where women should be color commentating, play-by-play, hosting, being an anchor on a sports show, and that's coming. Finally, quickly, solutions over here on the right and ways to increase acceptance is basically, I'm going to go down to E because I have like 1 minute left, but men advocating for women and supporting them as broadcasters has to happen because men own TV stations. Men currently are producing sports shows. Men are holding the power. It's called I can't pronounce this, hegemonic masculinity, where women are in positions below men. This is constantly challenged by women, but rarely altered without the consent of men from the top of the socioeconomic hierarchy. So the people that own the station, the people that run the station. So executives giving women opportunities at the network level is what's needed to incite change. I hope some of this information made you guys think, and thanks for reading it.